7-Eleven plans to close more than 400 locations across the country. Our city of Las Vegas has the most 7-Elevens in the nation. We've already seen a few closures. 8 News Now reporter Ryan Tismaneski says it might be see you later Slurpee and bye-bye Big Gulp.
In their presentation for the second quarter of the current fiscal year, 7-Eleven's Japanese-based ownership company, 7 & I Holdings, announced they'll close 444 stores. They cite issues like inflation keeping customers from spending, less people going to stores, and even plummeting cigarette sales. Another boarded up and chained location, the one on Twain and University Center.
It's something that to really make you think and to wonder, about the economy and the things that are going on and make you kind of stand still and take notice of, the situation that we're really in.
7-Eleven closing 444 underperforming stores across North America. The convenience store chain has more than 13,000 locations across the U.S., Canada, and Mexico. The company says the closures are because of slowing sales the past 6 months, fewer cigarette purchases, and inflation.
It's very concerning when we see retailers, making decisions that they believe they have to make to close their doors.
There's a sign in the window. This 7-Eleven on Ellis Avenue is closed. At least 2 other 7-Elevens not on the list have also closed, including this one on McPhillips and this one on Pembina. 7-Eleven could not be reached for comment about why the stores shut their doors.
If you're going to 7-Eleven locations like this one on Sahara and Jones or 443 others across the country, you come across this, a sign telling you it's been permanently closed and some locked doors.
We need government to step up and saying, we're not going to treat this like a victimless crime. We're going to treat it like the meaningful challenge to our community's well-being that it is.
Even with the controlled access, so it's always a stressful experience for me at least.
It's going to be an inconvenience because now there's not going to be anything because usually they're open 24 hours.
One store has experienced $300,000 worth of stuff. They just come in there, they take whole shelves.
How is the business community reacting to the prospect of these potential closures?
The Winnipeg Chamber of Commerce says it's not surprised by these revelations. It says it's time to stop treating these crimes as if they are victimless.
Declining of tobacco sales, lottery sales, but above all, excessive government regulation.
I used to sell this chocolate for $4.49, something like that. Now it's $6.90.
7-Eleven just unleashed the largest closure wave in North American history, and Canada's getting slammed. We're talking 444 stores shutting down across the continent, with our country taking a massive hit. This isn't some quiet business restructuring, folks. This is proof that Mark Carney's economic policies created conditions so toxic that even global giants can't survive here anymore. While Carney's been promising Canadians would feel relief every time they walk into a store, one of the most recognizable chains in the country is now boarding up windows and chaining doors shut. The timing couldn't be more humiliating, and we're about to expose exactly how his plan backfired spectacularly. The numbers don't lie. Western Canada gets crushed. Let me break down the brutal math for you. Out of Canada's roughly 550 7-Eleven stores, nearly half of them sit in Western provinces. Alberta alone holds the single biggest cluster in the entire nation, and guess what? They're getting slammed first when the closure wave hits. These aren't luxury boutiques we're talking about. These are lifelines for working communities. In Alberta, BC, Saskatchewan, and Manitoba, losing a 7-Eleven isn't losing a snack shop. It's losing the place kids gather after school, the late-night community safe spot, that anchor in your town that stays open long after everything else shuts down. The irony here is absolutely brutal. Western Canada props up this country's economy with energy, exports, and growth. Yet, it's also the region where the shutdown fallout is landing the hardest. When 7-Eleven starts cutting, the first lights to go out aren't in downtown Toronto or Vancouver's luxury districts. They're in the prairie towns, the highway stops, and the working-class neighborhoods that actually keep this country running. And the numbers get even worse when you dig into the crime statistics. In Winnipeg alone, stores are losing $300,000 to theft. $300,000, folks. They're not talking about kids stealing candy bars. They're talking about people coming in and taking whole shelves worth of merchandise. The Winnipeg Chamber of Commerce warned that 10 stores could be on the chopping block because of financial losses due to theft and crime. This is what happens when you have government policies that treat retail theft like it's a victimless crime. Store owners have been screaming about this for years, telling anyone who'd listen that margins were evaporating, operating costs were exploding, and crime was chewing through profits. But did Carney listen? Did he take action? Absolutely not. Instead, his government's soft-on-crime approach created the perfect storm for retail failure. When stores can't keep their inventory on the shelves because thieves are walking out with armloads of merchandise, when they have to hire extra security just to keep the doors open, when they're forced to serve customers through windows because it's too dangerous to let people inside, that's not a sustainable business model. The western provinces that generate the wealth for this entire country are now watching their community anchors disappear one by one. Streets get darker, foot traffic drops, and the little pockets of safety that 24/7 stores create start to vanish. In some of these areas, this isn't one less option. It's literally the only option gone. This connects to a broader pattern of Western alienation under current leadership. The regions that carry Canada's economic weight are the same regions getting hit hardest by policy failures. When Western storefronts go dark first, it sends a message louder than any press conference Carney can hold. The economic stress is strongest where the country depends on stability the most, and every closed sign in Alberta or Manitoba is proof that his system is cracking right at its foundation. Carney's economic disaster exposed. 7-Eleven didn't just wake up one morning and decide to abandon Canada. They warned about margin collapse, crime surge, and tobacco restrictions killing their profits for years. Store owners across the country were sending up flares, telling anyone in Ottawa who'd listen that the retail ground was giving way beneath their feet. But Mark Carney brushed it off. He was too busy building his political brand and making grand promises about how Canadians would feel relief every time they walk into a store. Well, how's that working out now? One of the most recognizable storefronts in the country is failing under his watch, and he's got nowhere to hide. Let's talk about what actually killed these stores. Foot traffic dropped for 6 straight months. The late-night rush that 7-Eleven depends on simply disappeared. Inflation made every single bill that keeps a 24/7 store alive absolutely brutal. Electricity, wages, insurance, deliveries, they all exploded at the same time while customer spending collapsed. Then there's the tobacco factor that nobody wants to talk about. Cigarette sales dropped by more than 25% over the last few years, cutting the heart out of convenience store margins. These aren't luxury items we're discussing. Tobacco products were the high-margin lifeline that kept small shops profitable. When Ottawa tightened vaping and tobacco rules even further, they gutted the last dependable revenue stream in the entire sector. Compare Canada's hostile business environment to what successful chains actually need to survive. They need predictable costs, manageable crime levels, and products they can actually sell at a profit. Instead, Carney created an economic hellscape where even the most basic convenience store can't function. Here's the part that should absolutely humiliate every politician in Ottawa. A Canadian company, Couche-Tard, launched a massive $46 billion bid to buy 7-Eleven's Japanese parent company and bring the entire global chain under Canadian ownership. Think about what that would have meant. If that deal had gone through, Canada wouldn't be sitting here watching their stores close. Canadians would be the ones deciding which stores survive, which stores evolve, and how the network grows across the country. Instead, Japan shut the door, rejected the offer, and kept full control. Just months later, the closure wave hit North America, with Canada having zero say in which communities got wiped off the map. The message is brutal but honest. Ottawa doesn't control the future of its own retail backbone anymore. International boardrooms in Tokyo are now deciding which Canadian towns lose their 24/7 lifeline. This proves Carney can't protect basic economic infrastructure. When a global retail giant looks at the reality on the ground in Canada and decides it's not worth the fight anymore, that's not a business decision. That's a policy failure. The pressure suffocating Canadian families is now suffocating entire chains. And when those neon signs go dark, the failure isn't just operational, it's political. The ripple effect. What dies when 7-Eleven dies. When a 7-Eleven shuts down, the damage spreads like wildfire through the entire community. Jobs disappear overnight, and I'm not just talking about the cashiers. Delivery drivers, cleaning crews, local suppliers, security contractors, small bakeries that provided fresh goods, everyone tied into that ecosystem gets hit. These stores aren't fancy, but they're woven into the fabric of daily life. They're the place kids grab snacks after school, where parents stop on the way home from work, where you run at midnight because everything else is closed. When that familiar corner goes dark, it sends an emotional shock through neighborhoods that politicians in Ottawa never bother to understand. In Alberta, Manitoba, and prairie towns where 7-Eleven was basically stitched into community life, the loss hits incredibly hard. In some areas, this isn't one less option. It's literally the only option gone. Streets get darker, foot traffic drops, and the little pockets of safety that 24/7 stores create start to vanish completely. The truth is, 7-Eleven didn't collapse in isolation. Every convenience store in Canada has been getting hammered with the same wave of problems. Rising crime, higher operating costs, and Ottawa's own restrictions wiping out their highest margin products. Small convenience stores have been closing at record pace. In Quebec alone, 550 independent stores shut down in just the past 2 years. If the biggest, most efficient convenience chain in the country couldn't survive these conditions, smaller family-owned stores never stood a chance. The shutdown isn't a surprise. It's proof that Canada's entire retail base is breaking under the weight of policies and costs that no business can absorb. This is the canary in the coal mine for Canada's retail sector. When global giants start abandoning Canadian markets, when community anchors that survived every previous recession suddenly can't make the math work, that tells you everything about where this economy is heading under current leadership. Conclusion. The warning shot. When global giants abandon Canada, that's not coincidence, that's policy failure. Carney created economic conditions so hostile that 24/7 convenience stores can't function here anymore. Tell me in the comments if your local 7-Eleven closed and how it affected your community. Hit subscribe because this retail collapse is just the beginning of bigger economic failures coming.